Good evening. Welcome to the legislative session of the Village Board of Trustees. It is November 6th. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. We have quite an exciting, active agenda. We're going to begin with 2 public hearings before we go into our regular public meeting. Madam Clerk.
So Trustee Bazemore?
Present.
Trustee Levin?
Present.
Trustee Herrera?
Present.
Trustee Quesada?
Present.
Mayor Garrity? Present. Okay, so we're moving on to public hearing A, local law number 9 of 2019, a local law amending section C3-5 of the Village of Austin Charter, powers and duties of village manager. Is there anyone here who would like to say anything in regard to the public hearing? You only have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
We've never set the 2-minute time limit for a public hearing. And we didn't state it. Right, yeah. If you want to speak about either of tonight's items, I think, I don't know if we have a timer on, but for public hearings, I'm not sure that we ever actually have a time limit, but please just be respectful of the fact that other folks may want to speak, if not on this item, then on the next one. Anyone seeing no one who's interested in speaking about public hearing A, local law 9? Seeing no one, do we want to?
Since we have the possibility of keeping it open, and since it looks like we have no speakers tonight, can I request Corporation Counsel to share what the amendment is?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. This is an amendment to section C3-5 of the village charter, which would allow the village manager to appoint an assistant village manager who would perform the duties and assume the responsibilities of the village manager during his or her absence or inability to act. The assistant manager's duties would be assigned by the village manager. The Board of Trustees would fix the assistant village manager's salary as well as the other conditions of employment. The reason that this was determined necessary as a charter revision was that the County of Westchester has advised that in order for the village to add the position, there must be a specific provision in either village code or village charter that the assistant village manager would assume the position and the responsibilities of the village manager if the village manager was unable to perform those duties. So that was the purpose of the local law.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. It was not printed in today's handout, but it is available with a hot link if you go to the village website for the agenda. Any further comments? Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I don't. No one's here tonight, so I think this is
It's
a pretty huge deal, and I have no problem extending it at least until after the budget cycle. Time to even by that time, the budget will be out and about and be ready. So it gives people something to really respond to. I would like to at least see the public hearing extend to next month to have the budget hearing because they're in the budget plans.
Karen, have you included in the budget funding for this position that would go forward?
It is in the requested budget, yes.
Okay. Are there others who feel similarly that you'd like to leave it open, or are there others who would like to close it?
Yeah, I would kind of echo Trustee Bazemore's concerns, just because we're just starting public budget discussions, and because this would be, regardless of whether we had this position in the past, it would be a new position, a prospective six-figure new position. And as I mentioned before, while we had this small presentation, I don't think the public nor myself has really gotten an answer or has been able to discuss in length or comment onto the validity of such ask for a new staff in that office, or the potential of a new staff in that office before charter revision can be done.
Other opinions?
Yeah, I don't really see, I think it's been discussed. I think it's been discussed with the trustees. This is a matter of personnel. I think it's been discussed. I think there are other items for staff in the budget, so this would not be the only one. And so I really see no reason. We're not voting on having a new person. We're voting, I believe, on the village manager's ability to move it forward. Is that correct?
Just to have it in the charter, it doesn't necessarily have to be filled.
Right, and if we don't do this now, it will require a delay. So I actually think, it's like any other open position, I'm okay with closing it. So if you ask my opinion, I'm fine with closing it.
I have a question. If we don't have a timeline, how are we delaying something that hasn't been scheduled?
That's a good question, so let me rephrase. I have no problem with closing this tonight.
What's your opinion, Trustee Gonzalez?
I have no problem closing this public session at this point. I mean, it was stated before, and we have discussed this not just internally, but also in the public part. I haven't received any comments from the public on this matter. Me personally, I don't know if anybody else has. You know, to me is something that if it's part of our budget, if we feel it, it's fine. If we don't, it's fine too. I have no problem closing this public meeting right now.
I just wanted to sort of reiterate my comments because my ask was that this be part of
It is, yes.
So, my ask was simple to extend it past the budgetary period so that the public can see the line item being coincided with the charter amendment. And the reason I'm just doing a clarification because there are some comments that were made that this is not about whether I'm commenting the village manager. This is about making sure that people can see it as plain as day, because today we will see the budget. Tomorrow we will have our first budget meeting, and then I think we also just we're calling for a public hearing for the budget. So this is just the way of saying, okay, once we have the budget, we see the charter amendment, this is the dollar figure, and it may or may not cause the public to respond. So before we start saying that people are questioning this because of the lack of the lack of belief in the village management, I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm going to piggyback on that. And you brought up some very good points because we are starting the budget meetings tomorrow, which is a whole day, which is open to the public, and the public can come in and comment to any item that we're going to be addressing on the budget, correct? So because of doing that, to me, is something that is not really, I don't want to say it's relevant to this point, but they can comment on any of that parts of what we're going to be seeing on the budget. So if we close the public meeting, that doesn't mean the public won't have the opportunity to comment on that line item as you referred to. So I personally just don't see why we should delay that. So.
Trustee Levin, is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm having actually a hard time hearing other people talking because there's like a little feedback, but everybody here seems to be hearing it okay. So I just went to the back of the room to see if they're hearing it, because it's actually better back there than it is here.
The question is, are we going to close the public hearing? Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'm in favor of closing the public hearing.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So So, Stuart, as a matter of procedure, we've closed the public hearing on proposed local law 9, which will enable us to move forward with then calling a vote for local law in an upcoming legislative session, November 20th?
Yes.
Okay. That would be 2 weeks from today. And at that time, then we'll have a roll call vote. And what that will do is we'll put in the charter the ability for the manager to hire an assistant village manager if she or a future he so chooses.
May I add to that, it's also, because it's a public meeting, in 2 weeks from now, public can also comment at that time.
They can always
If-
comment
if
because it will
that's
be a
the case.
resolution at that meeting, yes. And they can certainly public comment in writing to the BOT at villageofossining.org in the intervening 2 weeks. Okay, moving on, Madam Clerk.
Going on to public hearing B, proposed honor and naming of the intersection of Cortlandt Avenue and Sherman Place for James Drohan Sr. Is there anyone here who would like to say anything in regard to the public hearing?
I have a feeling we may have someone who wants, one or two people who want to speak. Many people have already, and you can start making your way to the microphone. I'll just introduce it. If you want to, I mean, there's people here who I know are in support of this. And there are more people who have already expressed their support via email to us in recent weeks. And I want to say thank you very much to you, Jim Drohan, yep, you, for your patience and persistence. You came to my office more than once on a number of occasions and said, you'd really like for us to consider this, and how do we go about that? And we sort of responded with, wow, you know, we don't have a very consistent procedure. It's sort of haphazard. Whoever happens to be in office at the time, we've done it this way, we've done it that way. And we would like to create a more formal procedure so that anyone going forward has a process by which they can make a request for us to consider. And you were a guinea pig, so thank you very much for that. And we've come this far, and it's been many months, and you have been extremely, as I said, patient and persistent. So welcome this evening.
Thank you. I would just like to take a quick minute, and thank Mrs. Mayor, or Board of Trustees for this opportunity to put my the naming policy forward. I enjoyed every minute of it, believe it or not, even though it did take long, but it was very cool to watch everything unfold. And I'd just like to thank all my friends, all my family, everybody that took a couple minutes out of their day to email you guys and, you know, just let everybody know what kind of person my father was. So, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a lovely process. It's really nice to learn more about the life of someone in our community who was beloved and gave so much to the people of us. Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment as part of the public hearing? Just here for moral support. Okay. So, Stuart, as a matter of process, we're here for a public hearing because the public hearing is part of what we wrote into what is this new process. So where do we go from here?
You would close the public hearing, and then at our next session on the 20th, we would have a resolution approving the honorary street naming for James Drohan Sr.
Okay, so do we have a motion to
So
close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I love when it's unanimous. All right, thank you very much. So if you didn't hear that in the back, in 2 weeks we will be at the courthouse for the resolution formally moving forward this request to name the intersection at Croton Avenue and, I don't know, what do you call it?
Sherman Place.
Sherman? Okay, I mean, for those of us who live in the neighborhood, it's actually not Sherman on the other side, but that's okay. Because he was a crossing guard, the other side of the street has a different name. But yes, for that to move forward in 2 weeks. We'll see you at the courthouse, Jim, and anyone else who wants to join us then. Again, if you want to come out again, we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Alrighty.
Moving on to mayor's and trustees' announcements.
I imagine there are some announcements. Do folks have anything going on they want to let folks know about? Things that have been going on they want to let folks know about? Please go right ahead, Trustee Guerra.
So it is November, so I wanted to make a special announcement. So the Delata House 5th Annual Turkeys for Thanksgiving is beginning, and this year it's being co-sponsored by St. Anne's Church, the Ossining Union Free School District, Yonkers Community Action Program, and the Terrytown Community Opportunity Center. So 2 things. They're seeking donations of frozen turkeys, and drop-off locations are going to be at the Rectory at St. Anne's, which is at 25 Eastern Avenue. That began the 1st of November and is going all the way till November 22nd. It's 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. for drop-off. You could also drop off your turkeys at Deli Bagel Cafe, which is 238 South Highland Avenue, 8 to 4 p.m. And then this is the best part that I like to announce that they do, and it's made possible by everyone who volunteers, is the free Thanksgiving dinner. So usually it's held at the Doubletree Hotel in Terrytown, but this year it's going to be held at the gym of St. Anne's Church on Sunday, November 24th. And there's 2 seatings. They get a few hundred people and families, so one's at 2 p.m., the other's at 4 p.m. It's for seniors, veterans, and all Westchester families in need. So if you want to learn more about the turkey drive or the free Thanksgiving dinner, the phone number for that is 914-941-2556, and the email is galatahouse@gmail.com. And my other announcement is, as a Ossining resident, though not of the unincorporated town or a voter of that area, I really wanted to highlight what I feel was a win for all of Ossining yesterday, as they spoke up regarding 3 referendum votes, better known as local laws, through 3, 4, 5, and 6, changing the positions of receiver of taxes and clerk and highway superintendent from elected to appointed. You probably saw what I saw, that if you were a village resident, you were allowed to vote on it. That was a huge mistake from the town side. So much so that it's being litigated as we speak. But regardless, I'm happy that that the town and the village can really see what the pulse is on that type of conversation and how to move forward together. So I just want to thank all voters, whether you voted for that or not, but I think it sent a pretty loud and concise message. Thank you.
Others with comments and questions, announcements?
Yeah, thank you. There's been a few interesting articles, and I'd like the public to just sort of focus on solar energy. There was something called Community Solar Energy Process. All Con Ed customers, Ossining's included, except for those that have put solar on their houses like I have with my husband. There's a community solar project in place, so you don't have to have solar panels in order to benefit from being on the grid. And you can contact Con Ed and NYSERDA, and there's a few other, which I'll have Jamie, I will give you to do on the website, because there are a few links. We can save up to 10% of your electric bill by linking into this program. And it's a limited program, but it can save you as much as 10% on your electric bill. It also applies to renters, homeowners, multi-usage. Did not ask whether it was for commercial and non-for-profits, but I will get you the links. But people can actually go on the Con Ed website and learn about its community solar initiative.
Okay, anything on this side of the table? All right, I just want to go over a few calendar items. What we're about to talk about, in fact, we're all going to hop up from our seats and join you in the audience, because we have a very exciting presentation from the manager. It's her first budget as her village manager with her proposed 2020 budget, and it will be largely what we vote on a month from now, I would imagine. We're about to go into budget meetings where we're going to ask a lot of questions, make some changes, and then we'll come back here in 4 weeks. But I want to give you the schedule between now and then. So all of our budget meetings are open to the public starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. We will be at 16 Croton Avenue, Village Hall, for our budget work sessions. Tomorrow is our full day session from 9 to 5 p.m. And if you're interested in a particular department, we have the tentative anticipated scheduled times with those department heads listed on the village website. So that's 9 to 5 tomorrow. And then on Tuesday, November 12th, we will be in the evening from 6 to 9. And then Thursday, November 14th, we will be also in the evening, 6 to 9. And hopefully we'll be wrapped up by then. But if not, we've already scheduled, if needed, we will be again at Village Hall on Tuesday, November 19th from 6 to 9 p.m. And then the next night, as you've heard, we'll all be in the courthouse for a whole bunch of public hearings. Well, no, this is the big public hearing, the budget public hearing, and we'll be voting on the 2 items we have public hearings on this evening. So that's what's happening for the budget schedules. For the rest of the year, we have such a small number of meetings. I want to draw people's attention to a few things. We have a regular work session happening next week at Village Hall. Then on the 20th, obviously, we'll be in the courthouse as noted for the public hearing on the budget, as well as moving forward the items we have public hearings for tonight. Then it's Thanksgiving. Everybody enjoys a week off, including us. We all take off Thanksgiving Eve. And then we'll be back at the courthouse on December 4th, voting on the 2020 budget, what will be the adopted budget. And we'll have some adjustments after we have those many hours of budget meetings. And then we have just 2 meetings after that. We have a very special work session planned for December 11th. We will be at the Ossining Public Library honoring our volunteer appointees on the dozen or so village-appointed boards and committees that we have. So we are really looking forward to an opportunity to hear from all of our volunteer boards and to give a big thank you to the incredible work that they do on behalf of our community. And then the final meeting of the year that is anticipated, we'll say sometimes we have to squeeze one in over the holidays just to pay bills, and 3 of us show up in a room, and we do have a public meeting. But the last big meeting of the year is anticipated to be December 18th. It will be at the courthouse, and it will include a very special presentation to Mary Ann Roberts, who will be retiring at the end of the year from many years of public service to the Ossining community as an elected official. So we're looking forward to that as well. We hope you can join us for many of those upcoming meetings. Alrighty, so what do we do next here, Madam Clerk, Madam Manager?
Moving on to administrative reports, Village Manager Karen Dottori.
So you're about to hear from me at length. The last 2 weeks, we've really been busy working on the budget, so I will defer my report to the presentation on the budget, which will cover a lot of relevant items.
Well, we'll listen to Stuart.
I think we still have
Kevin, and then
yeah.
I was jumping the gun. It was Stuart and
I
Kevin.
misunderstood, sorry.
I was overexcited about the budget.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, very excited.
I do actually like the budget piece.
It is. It's very,
I love
I'm
budget season.
I'm serious. It was very exciting. And we got snacks.
Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
I'll be quick so that we can get right to you.
Very exciting budget.
We have an EAC meeting tomorrow night, rescheduled since we had the holiday of Election Day this week. That's at 7 o'clock at the Operations Center. Tuesday night is a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Again, the public is invited to all of those. It's been a busy couple of weeks in the law department reviewing many contracts, one of which the board is going to be voting on tonight to authorize the village manager to sign, which is with Semprocity, and we've gotten back many comments from them. We're working on other contracts relating to access to portions of the GE property for the new water treatment plant, contract with the vendor who provides review of the various telecommunications permits that are going on, as well as others that just cross the desk every day. But with that, I will pass the baton.
Does the board have to vote on that agreement with Eagle Rock?
No,
Okay, so will that come to the public, or is it just something that's going to?
it's available if the public wants it. It is signed, but it does not have to come before the board
And who signed it?
by the village manager.
Village manager. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. So first and foremost, this is my annual apology for what appears to be a beard on my face. It is November, which means that our staff is authorized to forego the razors for 30 days. We are in the middle of No Shave November, where all of our officers, or those that choose to participate, will be donating money to raise funds for No Shave November, an organization that supports cancer research and education for men's health issues. I'm not very good at it, but I'm a team player, so here it is. Looking backwards, a couple of things we've done. For Halloween, I just want to recognize Officer Hershowitz, Officer Joe Rinaldi, and Officer Connolly, along with all the folks in Recreation, OVAC, OFD, and so many different businesses and organizations who threw together a Halloween party on the fly. We got rained out on Main Street, but thankfully we're able to keep Halloween going because we don't think holidays should be canceled, especially not when they're for the kids, and also we need candy ourselves. So a really great party. It looked like there were lots of people here. I wasn't able to stop by this year as I had other commitments, but fantastic work by those officers. They really came together in a pinch to transition there and make something happen. And it looked like a lot of kids really enjoyed themselves, so we're really proud of that. Last week, we had talked, or 2 weeks ago when we last met, we talked about the Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association, where I was honored at their scholarship gala this year. And at that gala, we announced a partnership with Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association to host a recruiting drive for the 2020 exam for police officers. So we're really excited about that, and that'll be aimed at recruiting more candidates of color, men, women in law enforcement, and all those underrepresented groups that we have. And we're really excited to work with that agency because they've got pretty vast outreach. So we're hopeful that they can help us with that mission. After that, Captain Giorgio and I had attended the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference in Chicago, where I was scheduled to present once and presented twice because Boston Police Department didn't show up. So fun stuff there, and I was appointed to the Professional Ethics Standards and Image Committee. So an exciting one there. We'll be working on nationwide recruiting, also recruiting initiatives there, but on a larger scale. That's going to be some nationwide stuff as well as doing some policy work. One other quick policy item for all of those that are watching. As of November 1st, New York State law now requires that all children under 2 must remain rear-facing in car seats. So if you have children that are under 2 or of any age in a car seat and you're concerned, we offer free services to inspect those seats, and for those that may not have an appropriate car seat, we have some access to resources. So we would rather have people safe through our help up front than to find out later. So anybody that's concerned about their setup, they can come see us. It's a totally free service. Call 914-941-4099 and we'll set you up with a private appointment. That's all for tonight.
Chief, question. First of all, congratulations again 2 Fridays ago for the honor. I had mentioned it last week, and I had said that I was hoping that when we see you this week, you announced, or I guess Officer or Sergeant Hector, the President announced.
Sergeant Lopez, yes.
Sorry, Hector Lopez announced that you two will be doing some work together to increase, improve, I forgot the exact wording.
That's what I was referencing, the recruiting.
Right, can we get a little bit more on that? Because that sounded very local, very much a Westchester initiative.
For right now, it's really just Ossining with the assistance of the Hispanic Law Enforcement Association. The goal is to sort of use their network and fuse that together with ours. Their network is made up of police officers and correction officers from all over Westchester County, and they affiliate with agencies that are in New York City and Rockland County and surrounding counties. But we know that this is such a concentrated issue here in Ossining, and for that reason we think that they can be of a lot of assistance in just doing some outreach work with us and stuff like that. So we're going to have a series of events. We'll be announcing all those soon. We haven't set dates in concrete with them yet, but we're looking forward to doing lots with them.
Great, thank you.
All righty. Is it time? It's time. All right.
Really the hard work starts.
Oh, I'm not here. Can we?
Yeah, do you want to dim the lights? I don't know if you can see that well. I don't know if you... Get your popcorn. So I have to hold it right up like this?
Yeah.
Okay, this is exciting. So, welcome to the presentation of the 2020 tentative Village of Austin budget. This is a really huge undertaking. Obviously, it's my first time undertaking it, but I really want to acknowledge the tremendous work of the staff, the department heads, and our treasurer, Tom Warren, our deputy treasurer, Dale Ferrara. They do a phenomenal job. I have to say it's been such a great experience for me to work with such competent, dedicated people. A lot of attention went into this budget. Everybody's cognizant of the impact of taxes on our community. There are many, many people who work for the village who also live in the village, so they understand what the impact of taxes has in a very real way. We're cognizant of the tax cap, and a lot of attention went to making sure that we're spending money as efficiently as possible. So I just really want to acknowledge the work that the staff did, the work they do every day to provide good services and be as efficient as possible. So tomorrow the hard work begins, because that's when we'll be sitting down with the board to go over every line item in the budget, line by line, page by page. It's a pretty big document. And the budget will be further honed and reviewed and analyzed to make sure, again, that we are presenting the best possible budget to address the needs of the community with the resources of the community in mind. So this is not the best organization chart, because it's a big organization. It's hard to sort of spread out the way I would have rather seen it. But this chart represents all of the entities, departments, services, and functions of the village government that go into the budget. So that's the village office with the DPW, Parks and Rec, Section 8, Building Department, Planning Department, the Fire Department, all the different houses, Corporation Council, and the Police Department. So it's a lot, 175 full-time employees plus part-time employees. It's a big operation. So this provides a snapshot of the budget. And when you're looking at the budget, it's important to understand there's 5 different funds that comprise the entire budget. So we have the general fund, and that's really where your tax assessment goes to fund the general fund. That's the most significant revenue. But there are other revenues too, so monies that we make through program fees, a whole list of other things that we're going to go over in more detail. But that's basically, your tax dollars are going to fund the general fund. We also have water and sewer fund. Those are funded by your quarterly water bill. So when you get that bill, that's where that money is going. The Section 8 program, which is an affordable housing program, is subsidized by the federal government. So that's largely funded by monies, almost the entirety of that is funded by monies through the federal government to provide affordable housing in our community. And a small percentage of that is also funded through the general fund. It's a relatively small proportion. Small proportion. And then debt service fund, which is funded proportionally through the other funds and is then canceled out, less interfund transfers, to give you a total budget of $53.9 million for the entire organization. So when we look at the 2019 budget versus the 2020 proposed budget, you'll see an increase of 2.22%. And that increase is primarily driven by costs that are a bit out of our control. So it's negotiated salaries and employee benefits. But for the most part, when we look at this, it's really a flat budget carried over from the prior year. The total to be raised in taxes, we had a tax rate increase of 0.96%, so just a little under 1%. That's based on the assessed value of our homes, which increased a bit. So if you look here, the average home in 2019 in Ossining was $318,000, $463, and now it's $322,541 for a slight increase in assessed value. That gives us a tax rate increase that you will see is really realized in about 3 cents per thousand on your tax bill. And the average tax bill for 2020, you can expect to pay on average about almost $54 more than you were paying last year. And this is based on the proposed budget. The budget will continue to be refined. So it's interesting to understand the tax cap. So New York State tax cap legislation states that a municipality is entitled to raise the levy, the tax levy, by 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. This year, the rate of inflation was higher, so we got the 2%. And the total 2020 tax levy increase that we were allotted for this year is $442,204. And this incorporated a growth factor of 1.0004 and a carryover of a little over $30,000 from 2019, which was tax cap monies that we were allowed that we were under the tax cap that we were allowed to carry over from last year that were not spent. So the total adjusted tax levy actually comes in at $23 million, a little over $23 million. What we're budgeting is under that. So again, we're looking at a 0.9%, almost a little under 1% increase from 2019. We are under the allowed tax cap amount by almost, 1.9459%. And again, this is what's giving us a 3% increase per thousand on our tax rate.
3 cents.
Did I say 3%? I meant 3 cents. So, apologies. So, and when you look at where your village tax is as part of your whole tax bill, if you're, again, we're talking about average home value, your village tax is about 25% of your total tax bill. Most of the tax bill is going to the school district, as we all know, and the balance is divided between the county and town taxes. So last year, if you want to know what you paid for your police department. Again, benefits are a big nut in any budget. Public Works, that's your DPW department, sanitation, road improvements, general operations, which is management, legal counsel, finance, IT, Parks and Rec, which gives us, we're here in the rec center right now, the fire department, and building and planning. So that's really what your tax dollars are paying for. Those are the services. And if we look at the general fund revenue summary, you can tell that we get most of our money from property taxes. But there's a lot of other items that go into that. So it's money from pilots, it's departmental income, which would be the program fees and building permit fees, intergovernment charges, which are our intermunicipal agreements with the town and other communities, and so on. So there's a lot in there, but again, 60% is coming from your property taxes. In terms of appropriation, 46 is going to staff, salaries, 30% to benefits, 17% is contractual, so that's consultants, and that's also services and, I don't want to say goods, but electricity, equipment that would be non-capital equipment, and then the balance is debt service. And then we have, we do have a little bit of appropriation for capital equipment, equipment and capital outlay. Water fund, again, these revenues are generated almost entirely by the fees that the water bill that we get quarterly. And it's divided up into the things that make our water high quality, and we know we invest a lot in water here in Ossining, which is probably one of our most precious resources next to our residents, but purification, distribution of water, these are all things that when you get that water bill, that's what it's paying for. And it's also paying for sewer services, which are also very, very important, as we know. So Section 8, as I mentioned, is almost 98% funded by the federal government. We do make up a balance of that funding because it is an incredibly important program for us. It provides an affordable housing subsidy so that people who work in our community can live in our community. And it really is a critically important function in an area that's very, very expensive, like Westchester. Our major initiatives for 2020, we're looking at brand new financial, building, and personnel planning systems. So again, upgrading our software, providing for greater efficiency. We're going to be able to do, we're looking at more online services for our constituents and residents, as well as ability to work more efficiently internally. Our new Indian Brook Water Treatment Facility is probably our biggest initiative, and that's in the works. That will be a several-year project, but there is money in that budget, in the 2020 budget for this. The Op Center on Route 9, we're going to be doing some work to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Right now, it's a sort of difficult building for people to access, not only because it's all the way over on 9A, but there's no elevator, so it's not particularly ADA compliant. We're looking to make upgrades there because people do use it. That's where they go for building permits and also use it for some other community functions, but we want to make better use of that building and make sure that it's more accessible for our residents. As I mentioned, we're looking at doing more things online and facilitating greater efficiencies through ease. So being able to do online building and planning permits is going to be really important to increasing the overall capacity of the building department. Because what this means is that people won't have to physically go to submit a permit. Most of the people who submit permits, it's part of their work. They're contractors, they're plumbers, they're architects. When they have to go there, it takes time out of their day. To be able to do this online is tremendously more efficient than what's currently happening. Also, on the side of the staff, it makes for greater efficiency because the permits don't need to be logged in. They automatically go into the system, and that will free up more time to do more proactive work, whether it's code enforcement, be less reactive, and it really is a good way to not only ensure efficiency, but to put greater resources in a very strategic, proactive way to the things that we know we need to be done in our community, particularly in the area of code enforcement. We're working on the comprehensive plan update. We have a steering committee for that. We've just put out an RFP for the comprehensive plan consultant, which should be getting responses back at the end of next week. And we're very excited about that. In addition, we've also allocated funding for additional planning that can, and there's a little extra P because we're very excited about that planning. So we just want to reinforce that with an extra P there. But we really want to make sure as we go forward with the comprehensive plan that we're looking at ways that we can drive improve benefits to the community, drive economic development, and continue on a trend of making sure that Ossining, as we already know, is the best place to live, but making it even better. We received site concepts recently, which we will be sharing with you on a mixed-use, mixed-income development at the DPW site down on Water Street. We're looking at code enforcement tools and strategies, and recently I attended a presentation where code enforcement was used as an economic development tool. And it was really quite fascinating. So there's things that we can do to, again, further enhance our capacity to have effective code enforcement to the benefit of everybody. And then we're looking at parking, traffic, mobility, and a new parking metering system, which will be much more efficient, will provide significant increase in revenues. We have put money aside for a youth bureau, which we think is a really important function that would be housed here in the recreation center most likely, and it would give us an opportunity to access funding that is currently not available to us for programming for youth. And to complement that, we will be opening the rec center on Sundays and enhancing our programming for teens, toddlers, adults, and seniors, TTAS. And we will also be looking at improved language access policies and procedures across the board, which are very important to our community. Again, we want people engaged, we want them active, and we want to make sure that they are benefiting from everything that their taxes are paying from. So the presentation, this presentation will be available on the website, and you can submit comments via email or through the website. And we will be meeting with the board on November 7th, November 12th, and November 14th, as well as possibly, if we need to, on November 19th to review this in great detail. So again, this is only the beginning. This is the proposed budget. We try to make it as efficient as possible, and we know that working with the board and with comments from the public that it will be even more efficient in its final form. So again, I'd like to thank the staff. I'd like to thank the board. I'd like to thank the residents of Ossining and everyone I work with for completing the tentative budget and for looking forward to a great 2020. Thank you so much.
Find our way back to our seats. So, yeah, actually now is the traditional time to hand out the very exciting binder that goes along with that lovely presentation we just had. We're all waiting with bated breath to get our hands on this. Thank you. We're going to go home and study it in preparation for our 9 a.m. meetings that we're going to last 8 hours tomorrow, for sure. Karen, thank you. I'm really excited about that. I genuinely do really love budget season. It's an opportunity to hear from all of our wonderful department heads and understand what they've been up to for the last year and how they're going to do even more great things next year, and really understand their experience running their departments in Ossining. And a budget is a reflection of your values. And so with that in mind and seeing things through that lens, it's a really valuable process for all of us in elected office and all of us who serve in municipal government. The only thing I would add to that very helpful overview that's getting us ready for tomorrow and giving the public an idea of what they're going to be able to see online tomorrow. Okay, the budget will be online for everybody to take a look at tomorrow, and you'll have 2 weeks to take a look at it. Before, the one thing that was left out of that was that the public hearing, which we have now just called for, will be taking place on the 20th of November, and that's your chance in the public to publicly voice your opinion. In the meantime, once you have a chance to look at it online, you're always welcome to email us, bot@villageofossining.org or kdotori@villageofossining.org. Anybody else need to comment during this public presentation?
I want to thank you, Madam Manager, for your presentation. For me, what stood out with those was the graphics. I would actually ask that if possible, that those graphics could actually be put on Facebook, or if there's some way where the graphics could just be pulled out online, because I think that is a short, easy way for people to understand what's in the budget. And I want to thank you.
That was the goal. So, otherwise, it's this.
Yeah.
It's not as easy.
That's the best way.
Yeah. So it's not easy distilling it all down to those few pie charts.
Yeah, for anybody who couldn't see, there was lots of nodding for both Karen and Jamie that will be getting that PowerPoint out for people so that you can, really take it all in. And it is a much easier way to distill this than all these pages, which mostly makes sense to Dale and Tom, and we spend the next 20 hours trying to understand them.
Thank you.
Did you want to comment?
Yes, I also wanted to say thank you to Manager Dottori for the budget and her presentation. I agree, simple graphics go a long way. Just a really good comprehensive picture of just where our money goes and how it's allocated. And I also wanted to remind the public that while I understand that the majority of our meetings tomorrow or during the day and some you can't go to, you can watch it on YouTube and it'll be up and ready for you to review and can aid you in asking questions or for the public hearing.
Anyone else? All right. Madam Clerk.
Moving on to organization announcements. Is there anybody who would like to make an organization announcement?
Seeing no one.
Sort of lost the whole room here. They're apparently not as excited about the budget as some of us are.
Just getting a good night's sleep to get ready for tomorrow.
It didn't really draw the crowd I was hoping for.
We've got this whole big room.
For anyone who can't see, our trustees-elect have joined us again this evening. They've also often been attending, and we look forward to them following the budget meetings closely as they get ready for their job in the new year. And congratulations to both of you on your elections last night. We didn't comment on the election process. Congratulations to trustee-elect Omar Lopez and trustee-elect Frigiel.
Moving on to village board resolutions. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening? Okay, on to the resolutions. Approval of minutes, October 23rd, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the October 23rd, 2019 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of voucher detail November 6, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated November 6, 2019 in the amount of $627,994.29. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution calling for public hearing on the Village of Ossining's 2020 tentative budget. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing in the matter of the 2020 tentative budget to be held on November 20th, 2019 at the Bertelshagen Police Court Facility, 86-88 Spring Street at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? I'll just say I've been very presumptuous assuming that we were going to approve this resolution, telling everybody this would be the public hearing, and I think Norman will be able to officially say that would be the case. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye. All right. See you on the 20th.
Adoption of change to fee schedule. Whereas village management has recommended a change to the fee schedule effective January 1st, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining's fee schedule is amended effective January 1st, 2020 as follows. Taxi cab license owner, $350 per vehicle. And be it further resolved, all other fees shall continue in effect until and unless changed by resolution of the Board of Trustees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
So we went through all these fees last week, but this is the only one that we're voting on, just so we're clear for those that sort of, this is the... I don't really need, I mean, if you want me to, but I just want to make sure that I know what I'm voting on. It's just a singular fee. The
Well,
rest
we're going to,
yeah.
we're going to do the whole fee schedule in the new year, as is
Right.
typical in the reorganization meeting, but this one we were doing earlier because there's paperwork that has to go out before the end of the new year for them to renew their license. And so there are a few fees that fell into that category. This is the one of the, you know, it was cabaret and it was train station parking. We were leaving the same. They've been increased in recent years. This hasn't been increased in recent years. And I want to also thank Corporation Counsel for doing some follow-up investigation after our conversation. And actually, I think we're all very pleased with the information that he found, which is that this is per vehicle, not just per company owner. So that was this really having this increase has the impact in a proportionate way, which is what we were really hoping for. So I'm very pleased about that. Any other comments?
So per vehicle paid by the owners, this one? 'cause it's
Correct,
also-
exactly,
okay, just
not
wanna
for
be
the
clear.
license, which would be the driver's, right. And we're not changing it.
Correct.
Alrighty,
Okay, good.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye. Look at that.
Smile.
Authorization for village manager to sign an agreement with Simprosity Technologies, Inc. Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign a computer system and document management service agreement with Simprosity Technologies, Inc., 17 Academy Street, Unit 517, Newark, New Jersey, 07102. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'm just curious, Stuart, you mentioned that you'd been doing a fair amount of work on this particular contract in the last week, and we had quite a lengthy discussion on this last week, longer than I anticipated, and a lot more questions. And is there a quick way to summarize what some of the what's been accommodated for as a result of last week's conversation?
They are in pretty much agreement with everything that the board wanted. I know the board wanted some information, I believe, with regard to the translation. One of the things I do have to follow up with them is when will they be able to institute what the board was talking about. Is it simply the form itself? Because there are some of the applications, particularly zoning and planning, which if translated become a problem, because those are very detailed questions, so we have to sort of determine what do you do when you get an application that is in a foreign language that comes into the zoning or planning departments, because those have to be obviously reviewed by both our consultants and the board members. But many of the other changes that I had asked them to put in with regard to, them providing certain dates by which programs will be provided. They will be providing the computer at the kiosk in the building department. That they've all agreed to. So I hope to have a version of the contract to look at from them probably, hopefully by the end of this week, next week. I need to get it in Word because I only have it in PDF, so it's difficult to make those changes. But they have pretty much approved most of the changes that we've recommended.
So you have it in PDF?
I have it in PDF.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to, okay.
It may be easy for some of you.
No, no show.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be, yes.
Do not worry.
I did have a question though about this.
Yes.
I'm trying to see if I read the whole thing correctly. So another piece of the conversation that was about the number of, so the nice thing about this system, which we all like, is get rid of paper, it's digital, et cetera, that's been mentioned. The piece was that there's something in our law about the number of copies the different boards need. But, so you said that, I think you said you were going to look into it, but that you believe that we would have to actually change.
I believe I sent a memo around to the board.
Okay, I may have missed it, I'm sorry.
The only requirement is with regard to building permits.
Right.
Where it is specifically stated that 3 are needed. The internal policies of the planning and zoning boards are that 12 copies are needed. So that's an internal policy.
Okay.
I have confirmed with Joe Chermelli from Kellard Sessions that all he requires is one oversized copy and everything else can be on CD or PDF. The building department will not require any hard copies.
Okay.
So all that's going to be needed from a submission is someone will have to bring in a large hard copy for the consultant, but we will be able to change the policy within the building for a zoning application and for a planning application that we won't need the 12 anymore that have been required previously.
Sorry,
No, that's
apparently I'm
okay.
the only one that missed that email. Everybody else seems to have seen it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I might have some follow-up questions on that, but that's not, we're changing the law and the specifics of that and how we present that will be another conversation. Right?
I was going to ask something, but I'm good.
I just wanted to request that we add the contract amount, how much it is, into the resolutions so the public can know what we're voting on, the cost.
Well, this one is actually dependent upon how many applications are filed, so there's no base fee.
So we're agreeing on the breakdown in the contract though, right? On the prospective services that we get?
Well, the contract would indicate what amount of each fee would go to Simprosity. Plus, there is, and I apologize, there is a fee for the first 3 years for the contract. Yes. I apologize.
So it's the fee is $3,700, which is the time it takes when you do any online system or, where you're transferring documents and uploading your information into the system. And that's spread out over 3 years. It's $3,700 per year. After that, the way this particular company makes their revenue is through actual usage. So then that becomes part of the permitting fee. And then there is a breakdown of what those fees, how that fee is absorbed into what actually is your permitting cost. So in a sense, it's a self-funding, but people who are incorporating that's a benefit that they're getting through that fee. So, so for example, if I believe it's $25 is the baseline. So right now, if you have to go to the building department, you have to drive there, you have to go there, you have to, if you're a contractor, if you're anybody who's doing this professionally, that's a huge amount of your time. So it's even a cost-neutral advantage for most people who would be filing. It's ease for the residents who may be filing as well. So we like that model better because it's the most cost-efficient and it applies the fees in the most direct way with the most mutual benefit for the village and people who are working for, who are doing the work.
I don't even think he asked that.
I don't know.
I honestly, I think it's as simple as it's $3,700 and it's 25 cents per thing so that people can look at it and go, no, I mean, I think that's, and you're explaining the advantage of all that. Nobody,
Yeah, I'm convinced her.
I just saw.
People might just be interested because it's actually quite inexpensive, I would think, is the reason you.
That's why I wanted to make that point, so we were excited.
Yeah, well, typically when we have a contract, we do identify not to exceed $1 amount. And this is an unusual one because there's a pretty small annual maintenance fee, and then it's paid for as a portion of each.
It's an important board consideration because it's a change in policies. It will lead to a change in maybe some codification on how we do things. So regardless of the fact that that outlay from the village doesn't fall into the criteria of going to the board, the change in process, I think, is worth public discussion.
Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, and again, I can go on in regards to this, but there's definitely going to be there's going to be a lot of benefits. That's one, not just for our end, but for the public. And there's going to be some savings because now they don't have to pay for the 12 copies for the planning board. They don't have to pay for the copies for the zoning board. They don't have to pay for the HPC or any other boards that they have to. They just be providing PDF format or scanned version or a CD, and that's all they need to do. In the building department end, it's the same way. All the approvals, all the revisions or any markups that they have to go back to the client or to the architect or to the professional, everything will be done online. So there's a lot of savings on that end.
So the only thing that I think it sounds like isn't fully figured out is being able to have it provided in both English and Spanish. And I don't know, I just don't want to suddenly be hit with some crazy fee that seems out of whack when we do realize all the benefits of this.
So the issue is that, you can use the translation services that are used, on most websites and things, but what it won't really do for you is on the more technical aspects of it, it's going to be much more challenging because that's not necessarily like a Google Translator function that's, for some of the nuances and the technicalities on it. So that's where they're still evolving that capacity, and I think that's what Stuart was talking is like, what's their time frame to build that in, because there's a lot of consideration that needs to go into that because it's not just applying a Google Translation feature.
Yeah, but
Just real quick, I apologize for that. But part of that, because I had some sort of discussions and even to some members within the Portchester municipal area where they do have a translation in that, and just talking to professionals that do this type of applications, from a homeowner or or something along those lines, whoever's going to be applying it, whoever's going to go in front of the zoning board, just to get a variance for anything that they're trying to accomplish, first of all, they'll have to hire an architect or an engineer, or something, or a professional to develop this drawing. So the applicant, even though may not be fluent in English or try to apply it, he won't be applying for this application. It will be the professional filling out this application. So I will expect that the professional will be able to fill out all these applications. There will be some elements in some moments with an application maybe will have to go or be filled out by a client or by an applicant. At this point, that may have to be translated, but I think it's going to be very minimal. And that's something that I was, kind of alluding before. And that's something that for what I've been informed by other municipalities, that's what they have seen. There's not that much of that happening in their building department as we think it could be. So that's something that we have to keep in mind as well. Homeowner, again, is not going to be utilizing those applications as we think. It'll be something basic that they will have to fill out. Again, it will be, if they have to go in front of the planning board or the zoning board, they have to hire an engineer. There's a reason why they go into those things. So they have to hire an engineer to do all those things. So, but again, that's something that we can discuss later on.
Yeah, I just thank you for that, and I know that we're going to have a chance to go into language access and possibilities and next steps and all at a different time. So, but just to add on to what the manager stated, we had a conversation at the work session that an alternative, as the vendor got to the point that they're able to provide such service to translate both forms in context, that we had the option to transcribe it for them and send it to them. That was the discussion that we had last week.
Yeah, because it wasn't, we weren't so much talking about having all the content be able to be accessible to Google Translate, because I think applications are different because they're fillable form online. So we would, just the same way we would provide exactly what it says in English, that we would provide exactly what it says in Spanish, because our building permit application. Yeah, anyway, but anyway, that hasn't been completely figured out yet, but if I just am wondering how it's going to be acknowledged in the contract, so we're not surprised by a large fee for that.
So I think the issue is that as they evolve that technology and the capacity to do that in the best way possible, how is that going to manifest itself and be towards us?
What I'm hearing from Trustee Quesada is that while we all have concerns about the language access being more accessible for Spanish speakers, that the building permits might not be the applications we have to be as concerned about as some of the other.
Correct, yes, some. I mean, don't get me wrong, there may be applications that they don't have to go in front of any of those boards.
Yeah, some of them are
just a
pretty
regular
simple.
application, and it will be something simple. But again, it could be just redoing my deck, and that's all they need to say. But when you do a Google Translate to that, but again, just our components that, to me, and again, going back, because I went back to the tape when the gentleman here from that company, it's impressive, thank you, was here, he agreed to all those things. It's just a matter of how do we get to that point. And to me, I would like to move the process along, because I don't want to hold this whole thing, because he has to do back work to transfer all those files into that. But that's something that it could be part of the contract. That'll be like within the next, just put in a number, 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, you'll have to provide us with something like that.
Yeah, my concern was that we just wouldn't include it because we'd be moving forward with something.
Correct.
So I guess the challenge, even though we're all in agreement, regardless of how we move forward with policies and procedures and contracts going forward, is a full acknowledgement of close to half the population speaking one particular language, right? And going out of our way to remove any potential or prospective barriers and identifying what vital documents or programming or services are, and that we're doing and we're going to do, and the board will continue, to do that as you guys go. But I just, back to your point, I don't want to. I guess my question was, along with the mayor, please tell me if I'm wrong, that as they continue to strive to figure out how they're going to do it, if we transcribe for them the name, nombre, once we identify the first 10 forms, would that be able to done, and how how is that going to be identified in the contract? Because if not, then my understanding right now is that we're just signing a contract in hopes for them to figure out how they might be able to offer it to us. And when they do, they'll tell us, and then so I just don't follow that part of it, that's all.
Yeah, I just,
I mean, I agree with you, I think it becomes a chicken and egg conversation. If you want the aggressive timeline of March, then certain decisions have to be made. I will say that it is one of those situations that they have a greater interest in doing this than we do in some ways, because when you look at their client list, it's very much like our community. I mean, there were folks on that list, and I kiddingly, as you recall, say they should be paying us for this, because the sooner they get that, the more they can actually benefit from it. So I really would believe that it is one of those, we're not alone in the field asking for something unique, but rather that it is in their interest, and if they are running a business, they will work as quickly as they can to get it. They were afraid, from what I understood, that if they incorporate all this, and you can go from a little bit to a whole lot, and it could be a little project or a huge project that sets it back. You could always say, I'm willing to wait 6 more months till you get it right. But if we want it in March, which I think is what was said last week is an aggressive timeline, March 1st they said, and that's testing and all that, then let us put that out there, and then we'll work on that, is the way I heard it. And I think it is, once I know it's also in their interest, maybe even more than in ours in this particular, because you know, the clients they have, I'm more confident that they're going to get serious about it because they're a business and they want to have it.
You know, I just want it.
I agree with you. I started with, I agree with
No,
you.
and I'm not sure I agree with what you said. I just want it identified in the contract. Even if they were to propose, listen, as we said at your work session, we currently cannot provide that particular service when it comes to transcription in context for forms. Even though you prospectively volunteered to do it for us, that's on hold. However, in the contract, it'll say 3 months or 4 months from now, we plan to provide, you know, I just want an actual action plan.
so I just wanted to say, because just for how I recalled it, we had a lot of conversation about forms. And so my understanding is that because if we were to actually create the form, the online form, that he could upload it at any given time. Now, Stuart, were you raising an issue as far as once they do that form, how the actual planning and...
There's 2 different issues.
Okay.
One is language access, which could be multiple languages, and the other one is doing it in dual language. So the issue with the forms is some of the forms are simple and lend themselves to an easy translation of whether we do it or he does it. Anybody could basically do it who had that language capacity. The thing is that what he was saying is it's awkward and sort of counterintuitive to a user to have some things that are going to be in Spanish and then some things that are not going to be translatable at this point because they're more complicated or more detailed. So what he was saying, Mike from Simprasi was saying, is that they're looking, what they want to do is they don't want to go out with, well, if you're doing a deck, it's in Spanish, but if you're, you know, building an apartment building, it's not. You know, they want to be able to do it the right way and get it out the right way, and to make it a fluid thing. So I think that was a little bit more of his concern. And then also the ability to, you know, obviously Spanish would be the predominant second language here, but the way a lot of the translation services now work, that, you know, you just say what language you want and it translates it, and that would be very difficult to do with this particular system. So those were the things that I think we have to work through with him on what that looks like.
So for me, just thinking about what Trustee Casada was talking about, I don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. Right. So if there are some things that we know that are common that can be done in Spanish, and I think to Trustee Herrera's point is that we want to make sure that we're intentional and actually being intentional about outcomes. So if there's a way to ensure that in the contract that, you know, those common things, whether it be the deck, you know, or whatever, you know, I don't know, electrical, I don't know, but whatever it may be, whatever that little code enforcement book that we give to people to say these are the things you need, like that little booklet, right? If it's those things, right, then, you know, whatever it could be, let's do that, and let's make sure that there is a deliverable within the time frame for that. And then when it starts to get into the more complicated things, you can have your druthers. But I think to Trustee Herrera's point, and to, as Trustee Quesada had mentioned, and for me, let's not make the perfect the enemy of the good, and try to provide something where you can, and then, you know.
Yeah, and just a caveat, I understand what you're saying. I don't think that was that if you can't do it perfectly, we just won't do it at all. I think it was the issue that you set an expectation. So when you only have part of the information translated and then part is not, it can be a frustration to the person who's looking for that information, because it's, you know, they're only able to get certain parts. And I think it's more about avoiding that frustration on the part of somebody who's using it in whatever language. You know, if they're using it in Spanish and they can only get so far, then it begs the question, you know, it's a frustration for them. So it's a little bit different than saying, you know, it's not to make it it's just, again, to set an expectation for anybody who's expecting it to be in a second language.
I just want to ask a question. Today, none of this is online. People have to walk in and get it done. So you have people there, and if you need Spanish badly, because people speak Spanish, might be able to do the forms in English. Not everybody is not able to do them. But if you find yourself going on and unable to do it, if there was a message, couldn't you, for that group of people, we're assuming it's half the population that needs this, but as you said, Manny, it could be 10% of the people because they're using professionals who can do it. Is there a way to just sort of get an online person, which there are plenty of those services, so that you can walk people through between the hours of 8 and 4? Like, there are many solutions. Not all of them is build the pyramids, you know? Some of them are simple things like for the 10%, we don't actually know. Actually, we will find out. So if you can't understand this between the hours, I don't know, of 8:30 and 3, Monday to Friday, call. They will be put through. You put somebody who speaks Italian, Portuguese, whatever the language is, Spanish. It'll give you for 3 months an ability to at least have a proxy for how many people need it, just as a proxy. That doesn't stop us from doing it in Spanish. It's simply a proxy. But it would also allow people to get the help they can, because you could actually go through the online without us sitting here building something that we think is the right thing to do. Nobody's saying it isn't. But it might be a way to get to where we want to rather quickly, and maybe not even that expensively, because there are these things already in place.
Thank you for that. You actually identified the top 2 implementation aspects of the language access policy that I sent around last week. So I think that you're right. Identifying what are tools that we could use, identifying and defining what vital is versus what vital is not. But I know that this is turning into a language access policy discussion, but just back to this particular contract, it seems like what we all just said is not in this contract.
No. I want to be clear. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, I got their comments. Okay, I got about a full page. I need to go through them. Much of what I asked, which was what this board said, they're okay with. They have agreed to key performance indicators in the contract. So I don't think it's fair to say it wasn't in their original draft, but that's because they didn't hear our comments. So what I've got from them now are the comments in response to me. We will then exchange back and forth, but I think much of what you folks have asked for will be in the agreement. It's just not in there yet because I only just got their comments today.
And we're being asked, so this is not all about the contract. This is us, like we usually do, is giving the village manager the authority to sign an agreement. But you want to see the agreement.
Yeah, because the agreement hasn't been finalized yet. So how did you sign
What
it?
we typically do is we've given very clear, lengthy indications of what we want this contract to include, and now our staff is asked to go and make it happen. And we never review the contracts because we're not the attorneys, you know. In this case, Stuart reviews it and Karen signs it, and that's our typical procedure. And we have, I think, reinforced what our priorities are, is to make sure that that's reflected into the very best of the ability of our staff. The one last question, and I'm not looking to turn this into another 20-minute conversation, but it is relative to what we were discussing, is where's the town in their process on this? Because I know they were on a parallel path, weren't they?
You know, we had shared all the information with them. They're moving forward with it. I don't know what their timing is for their public hearing or anything, but the reality is we can, you know, they would like to do it in our timing. If they do it a month later, it doesn't really affect us. They're also going to be doing it. So this is a completely separate agreement. There's no IMA. So, you know.
I mean, I think Soprosity indicated that they gave us the rates they did with the expectation that it was going to be.
I see no indication that the town is not going to go forward. I just don't know their exact timing.
Okay,
It's
well,
going to be
it's not,
close.
if it's not going to undermine our progress, then that's great.
It's not going to undermine our
Great,
progress.
okay. All good? Madam Clerk?
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I thought we had moved.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, no.
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Applications for dog licenses to be made to the clerk of the town of Austin. Whereas pursuant to Village of Austin Code Section 75-14A, all dogs in the Village of Austin must be licensed with the village clerk by the age of 4 months and required to present a current certificate of rabies vaccination at the time of licensing or the renewal of an existing license. And whereas New York Agriculture and Markets Law Section 109B provides, in part, application for a dog license shall be made to the clerk of the town, city, or county, or in the counties in the Nassau and Westchester incorporated village in which the dog is harbored. Provided, however, that in the counties of Nassau and Westchester, the Board of Trustees of any incorporated village may, by resolution, provide that the application for licenses shall no longer be made to the village clerk, but to the clerk of the town in which the village is situated. And whereas, following discussions by the Board of Trustees with village staff and representatives from the town of Austin regarding the responsibility for dog licensing, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to New York Agriculture and Markets Law, Section 109B, applications for dog licenses within the Village of Austin shall be made to the town clerk of the town of Austin in accord with the town code of the town of Austin, and be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution shall be provided to the Commission of the Department of Agriculture and Markets. And be it further resolved that the Corporation Council shall submit to the Board of Trustees for consideration a proposed local law amending those portions of the village code of the Village of Austin which are inconsistent with this resolution. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon approval by the Board of Trustees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so where are we with the rest of this conversation?
With none.
With the financial aspects of it, with the residents who have been overpaying in years past for them to be able to get reimbursed, because that's not acknowledged here.
We're going to put out something tomorrow. We had to have this codified first, that anyone can come in. It's since 2017, 2018, and 2019, $5 for each year. So they'll get a credit for each of that. If their pet is no longer with them, then they will get a reimbursement of the in total amount. And everything is on file. They don't need to bring in a receipt.
I feel better if that were in this resolution.
Well, I mean, we can certainly, that's the intent, so we can have that codified too. It's not, I don't think there's any reason that it would change. Nobody's against doing it.
Can't we just add it to the resolution so what we just said is pretty simple. I mean, it's great to hear and it addresses our concerns and addresses those being overcharged.
My hesitancy is that the resolution specifically called for by the statute is to simply turn over the process to the town. Doesn't deal with any of the other extraneous stuff that the board is talking about. As important as it is, the state law simply talks about a resolution turning it over to the town.
So then we need a separate resolution that the board addressed and rectified the issue. Do we? I'm assuming. I mean,
that could really be just a writing between the two, you know.
We can draft it as an agreement and have it signed. I'm not sure that it will be, the intent is there's a mutual interest in doing this. There's no nobody has an issue about not doing it, and we can certainly document it and have a signed agreement.
Well, I mean, I just feel that there's a financial obligation that we have to the village taxpayers and dog owners, and in this case, the town has not been reimbursing us for, well, I mean, adequately for many years, so that is being resolved, and then we've been overcharging village residents for years, and, you know, it does seem like, you know, usually those things are acknowledged in writing, and the financial obligations are.
We can acknowledge it in writing and have it signed as a document that can be for public consumption, but I don't necessarily think it has to be a resolution, but it can certainly be codified and documented and available for the public.
So can also part of that document that would be public, can it be like a memo on the clerk's office where if I'm not aware, if I didn't watch the meetings, if I don't go to it online, and if there's a memo right there, right next to the license, they can actually read it and be informed that they can get credit out of
We can
it?
put something up and we'll put it, you know, we'll push it out as much as we can. And again, if people come in to renew, it'll be.
If they come in to renew, it will show up that they have credit. That's the first thing.
Right, yeah.
So that's the first thing. So the most people that still have their dogs, they'll have that. There's people that aren't obviously going to relicense their dogs. We can put, we've discussed, and we can talk to Tom and Dale about putting it into the water bills, and maybe to the tax department about putting it into their tax bill. Just something in there.
We're talking about $10, $15, or $20, right?
Right, but this way, there's folks out there that don't have access to social media.
I don't think it's going to go into their water bills or their tax bill. I think this has to be covered.
It was something that came up from speaking to
You
the
mean some
town.
information?
Just a little letter that says,
Not
they
that it
can
would
get
be,
It's not added to the bill.
it's not
no,
added
it's
to the
like
water
a little
tax bill,
letter
it'd
that
be
would
like-
go into the envelope.
No.
Stuff in, no?
Oh, you're not talking about the credit wouldn't be given to the water bill. You're just talking about a way for information sharing. Okay,
It's
okay.
because everyone opens their water bills, and those people may not have access to the internet.
Oh, so you're just saying as a yes, okay,
It was a
informational.
suggestion is,
We'll have to talk about that with our I think their finance department might have been out the loop on that, so we'll
it didn't come up as a conversation,
we'll-
we were still talking about it.
We'll talk to them and see what's feasible and what's not.
It affects a relatively small number of people, and they have a finite list of anybody who has registered a dog since 2017. So why not just send a letter to those individuals? It's 250 people as opposed to, you know, 26,000. Yeah. Yeah.
So we could probably just do a mailing with a notice to people.
Yeah,
letting them know
and
it's
that's like
due for
more
250
direct than doing a whole PR campaign. It's 250 people that get a letter.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
When you register this time, you'll be given a credit automatically if for any reason you're not
It's
able to register your dog this year.
one
then
flyer,
please
copied
pay for your-
250 times and mailed to those
Sure.
people.
It's even a postcard, it's
Yeah.
not even a full letter.
Yeah, a
It
little
could be a
poster.
postcard.
Right, but it's
More
still
information
250
call.
people. It's not a community-wide notification. We got
Refund.
better things to make people aware of. Good.
All right.
So we'll work out those details, but I think that once the details are worked out, we'll document it and we'll
This
have
is
a
just about
public sign.
But what this is doing is saying that the village is out of the dog licensing business going forward, which is what was the unwritten understanding, and now we're actually having it be a true agreement. Okay. We motioned, we seconded. Any further comments? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whew. Fire Department Driver's List, Senate H&L Company Number 1. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Roberto Garcia of Austin, New York, was placed on the Driver's List of Senate H&L Company Number 1. Do I have a motion?
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there any continuing business of the board?
I just had a small point. Due to tonight being the budget presentation and us having to be up in the morning pretty early for close to 10 hours, I guess, I wanted to request, well, it's a long day. I wanted to request that we have an opportunity to discuss the language access policy that I presented, but also all the feedback that we've been getting. And I know that I'm speaking to other members and staff before next week, so I just wanted to give us an opportunity to really go through it and dissect it. And I figured that our next work session would be, best appropriate for that instead of on the new business tonight at a legislative session.
Sure.
Is there new business of the board? No? Moving on to visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
Oh, they're all eager to go too. They all have an early morning meeting too.
Then do I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Executive session.
Oh, okay.
Matters of litigation.
Okay, do we have a request for a motion for executive session for matters of litigation?
So
And
rewind.
You may want to consider doing the
oh,
executive session upstairs so that
that's okay.
this is someone's.
That's right. Okay, all right.
Got it.
We got a so moved. We got a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Whoa.
It must be you.
Our next public meeting is actually tomorrow morning at Village Hall at 9 a.m. and then we'll be continuing with our budget meetings next week as well. But we look forward to seeing most of you at our work session happening next Wednesday back at Village Hall. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.